Greetings and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It is Friday, August 1st, 2025, and on Fridays we talk about human behavior and justifications. Where did July go? Anyway, if I'm being honest, most people, myself included, tend to display what I call conditional empathy. That is, we evaluate some people, everyone, quite frankly, and their situations as more or less deserving of our empathy and compassion. So it depends on who you're talking about. We place conditions on our expressions of empathy then, or especially the broad distinction between those that we consider to be deserving and undeserving. And deservedness is partly a function of social and cultural distance. What do I mean by that? Well, simply put, we tend to have a bias toward people both in terms of their social and cultural distance from us. So on the one hand, we tend to favor those who are relationally closer to us, the people in our most intimate sphere, in our intimate lives. And that's what I mean by social distance, or actually I prefer the term here more specifically of relational distance. So all else equal, we tend to express more empathy and compassion toward our more intimate relations, toward the people that we're closest to. And that sort of makes sense, especially from an evolutionary perspective. We have limited energy and resources, and that includes our ability then to express concerns and then act on those concerns toward others. And it's not that other people, don't care about the proverbial starving children in Africa, or that they aren't deserving of our empathy. But the point is rather that I'm going to make sure that my own children are fed and well taken care of before I begin to branch outward. And similarly, we also tend to favor those who are more similar culturally to us, say in terms of their ethnic and linguistic backgrounds, or even their religions and nationalities, among other factors. There are actually several distinct cultural vectors, if you will, along which we tend to evaluate how much we are like other people and vice versa. And simply put, we tend to like people we're like. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So, and then we find that it's easier than to put ourselves into their shoes, so to speak. It's easier to be empathetic towards them as well. If I'm Jewish, for example, I'll tend to have a more natural affinity towards, or at least identify with others who are Jewish. Same thing if I'm Muslim or Christian or Buddhist or an atheist for that matter. That doesn't mean I can't feel empathy and compassion for others of different faiths. Rather, all else equal, it just means that I'll tend to favor my own kind a bit more than others. In short, I'm arguing that one aspect of deservedness boils down to our social connections and the degree to which people are relationally and culturally close to us. All else equal, we're more empathetic, and then we're even more willing to intervene and show compassion on behalf of our intimates and those who are more similar to ourselves. And then the second broad condition or dimension has to do with the actual conditions in people's behaviors and the degree to which we assign blame or responsibility. So if we're able to then find fault with others or blame them for what's transpired or their current situation, then we'll tend to be less empathetic. And that's why we're much more supportive, almost universally, toward those who suffer in the context of natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes and tsunamis and so forth. But I say almost universally because, once again, we have to factor in relational and cultural distance. If the natural disaster's closer to home, then that'll have a greater impact in terms of eliciting not only our empathy, but also our willingness to take action and provide support. If the disaster occurs far from us, not only geographically, but also far from us in social space, where we have a harder time, if you will, identifying with the people afflicted, then we tend to be less empathetic. And who's the least deserving of our empathy? Those animals, those monsters out there, right? Whomever we can most successfully dehumanize. Why should I have empathy for that pond scum? They're not even human. And of course, then we enter into the realm of what people actually do, quite apart from natural disasters or what lies beyond our immediate control. So, how does one feel empathy towards someone who destroys your own home? In some ways ruins your life, to say nothing of people, someone who rapes and murders young children, right, or commits the most horrific types of crimes imaginable. It's almost impossible. Again, I say almost, but not completely impossible. Why not? Well, interestingly, the research shows that if it's your own son or daughter, your own offspring, who's the criminal or the rapist or the killer, guess what? We tend to feel some empathy, precisely because of their more intimate relational and cultural distance to ourselves. If the people who do bad things then are not related to us, and if they're unlike us, well, then it becomes easier then to dehumanize and to even demonize those folks. Okay? And that absolves us of feeling empathy and compassion, at least towards some people and under certain circumstances. So, again, simply put, we're more kind to our own kind. It might be tough, but usually we'll still find some way to justify having at least some level of empathy and perhaps even extend some forgiveness then to people who do terrible things. But at least, or generally speaking, only if they're very close to us, or they've been part of our social network and part of our lives for a long, maybe our entire lives, or they're, quintessential representatives, the pillars of our community, and they're, the classic example of people who are culturally closest or most like ourselves. Well, there's more to the story, of course, but I thought it'd be helpful today just to share a couple of basic principles that help determine why we're more empathetic or less empathetic towards certain people and their situations. So at the very least, all else constant, we tend to be more empathetic for those who are relationally closer to us and those who are culturally most similar to us. And the more similarities, the better. And those whose behavior or situations that we can justify as being beyond their control. So if they're close to us in social space and they bear no responsibility for their plight, then those will be the people towards whom we feel the most empathy. Again, all else equal. Well, there are many other factors that shape our degree and our expressions of empathy, but I thought it'd be helpful just to share a couple of key kind of sociological determinants today. There's much more to say, more factors to consider, but I'm trying to keep the vlogs a bit shorter. So I'm hoping that'll make a difference in viewership, since people have only so much time and attention to devote to various interests, including the people they follow on YouTube. So that's it for today. Please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as ever, in the meantime, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance. And I hope to see you again tomorrow.